YouTube, Computer Kid 1416 here, and this is going to be a video request from Carter Donovan, who was thinking about getting a Game Boy player and wanted to see my thoughts, wanted me to get my thoughts on it. So I thought I'd come on camera and give you guys a little mini review. So for those of you who don't know, this is an accessory for the GameCube that lets you play Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color games all on your big screen TV. Now this had been done by Nintendo before. They released the Super Game Boy back in the Super Nintendo era that lets you play original Game Boy games on your big screen TV. However, that was just the original Game Boy, so the fact that this can play Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance makes it a lot more sought after in the Nintendo community. And yeah, it's a pretty cool accessory. Now, before we get into the gameplay and all that, I'm going to show you guys around the hardware itself. You can see it fits very streamlined into the GameCube. It's perfectly flush, so that's really cool. It's a very good design on their part, and it's very straightforward. You just have a cartridge slot here, which let me show you guys what that looks like. Just put the game in there, and then you can see here you've got an accessory port for, I guess, like Pokemon, and then also these two tabs here if you've got an accessory that uses those release tabs. And then to the side here you've got a little release latch for Game Boy Advance games in particular that flush up with the accessory. And then let me show you just what a Game Boy game looks like in here. Yep, you can see it sticks out a little more, but it makes it easier to pull out. But anyway, yeah, so that's better for the hardware. It's very simple, very straightforward. If you're curious, this is what it looks like when it's not in the system. A few other things to note before I get into the gameplay and the software end is that number one is that it will not work on the Wii. So even though the Wii can play GameCube games, the Game Boy player requires the accessory port on the GameCube, which the Wii does not have. And obviously the physical design of it would not work on the Wii anyway. So if you're thinking about picking one of these up, make sure you have a GameCube to use it on. Also, this will not work by itself. Now the Super Game Boy for the Super Nintendo did work by itself. It worked as if it was a cartridge. This does not work on its own. You need the accessory disc, which I've got right here. It's actually in the system right now. Looks like this, and this is the will allow the GameCube to communicate with it. So like I said, if you do not have this, it will not work at all. And unfortunately on eBay, a lot of times people lost those discs. So you'll notice that the accessory itself, the Game Boy player, is a lot more common than being sold with the disc. So make sure to be looking out for that if you are buying one for yourself. But anyway, now let's go ahead and turn on the system. I'll switch to the DVD recorder here, and we'll take a look at how the games look and a few other goodies you can do. So I'll be right back. Okay guys, here we are in the main GameCube menu. Now, a couple of things I forgot to mention before. If you have a Game Boy Advance link cable that is, you can use your Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Advance SP as a controller. Or otherwise you can just use the typical GameCube remote, preferably the D-pad, but anyway. So anyway, that's what the Game Boy player looks like. You load it up there. Come out in 2003, I think I forgot to mention that as well. And I actually forgot to put a game in it, but that's okay because I can show you guys something. So when you hit the Z button on the GameCube remote, you'll get this menu here. So you have these different options. You have Change Game Pack, which basically resets the Game Boy player so you can take a game out safely. Timer, which I really don't get this personally. It's not like a parental controls or anything like that. All it does, it's just a very basic timer. So I guess if you're making cookies while you're playing your Game Boy, I have no idea. That's kind of a strange addition, but anyway, screen filter. I personally can't really tell the difference between these, but supposedly it makes it either softer, sharper, or normal. So, whatever, you can play around with that, I guess. Different controller schemes here. Screen size, which lets you play in full screen mode or normal, and then frame. This is you can change the frame here. You got several GameCube frames, and then have some other ones here. I usually just stick with the standard. I usually either use black or GameCube. For now, I'll use the black. So anyway, let's demonstrate how this works. So you hit change game pack, and like I said, it basically acts like you turned off the system, and then you can put in your game. We'll start out with an original Game Boy game here. Now, the game is dirty. Alright, so let's do this again. Now, it's worth noting that the Super Game Boy editions that were added, like, for example, in Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, there was a edition where it had like an arcade-style border. Those, unfortunately, don't work here. This is purely internally at least, this is basically just a Game Boy Advance in terms of the BIOS and everything, so there's no extra features like that. However, I kind of like that personally. I like having the, as if it was, as you would originally play it. So, it just worked. Just thought I'd note that there. But anyway, let me just play a second so you can see what the gameplay looks like. And you can see it's not super blurry at all. You're watching this in 480p over S-Video. And yeah, as you can see, it doesn't look bad, or I guess not 480p, but anyway, you get what I'm saying. S-Video, but anyway, you can see it doesn't look bad, actually. The fact that it's not full screen makes it look less blurry overall. And yeah, it's a very enjoyable experience, I think, to play these games on the TV. So I would highly recommend this accessory to anyone. It's, like I said, it can be a little pricey because while I'm talking here, I'm going to switch out the games. Can be a little pricey because of the fact that a lot of people would lose those discs. But if you can find one at a reasonable price, I would highly recommend it. It's a very nice accessory to have. I'm switching it out here for a Game Boy Color game. Supposedly, if you're able to, and this is even more rare, if you happen to have a Game Boy, a GameCube composite cable that is 480p, like I said earlier, supposedly the games look really nice on that. Now, I do not have one myself. I have one for my Wii, which is what I use to play GameCube games, but that doesn't help me here. So, supposedly if you had a composite cable, you should use it with this because supposedly it looks really good. But even in S-Video here, I think it looks really good, actually. Alright, that's enough of that. Finally, let me show off a Game Boy Advance game. By the way, if you take out a game without doing this, it will just freeze as if it's a real Game Boy. Which it essentially is, from what I've heard. See, what game is this? Oh, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, I remember now. Yeah, once again, overall thoughts is I highly recommend it. There's really no downside that I can see except for the fact that it can be a little pricey. But other than that, in terms of the accessory itself, I really don't have any negatives to it. Fits perfectly with the system, doesn't look ugly or anything like that, and in terms of functionality, it does everything it says it claims to do and more. So, and this is something I really wish they would do again. The idea of being able to play these handheld games on your system. When the Wii U was out, they did release a couple of Nintendo DS games on the Virtual Console, and that was really nice, but they didn't do very many, and then they never did anything with 3DS, so I would really like to see this return. I understand that Virtual Console is the future, at least when it comes to older games like this, so I can understand them doing it on Virtual Console, however, but I'd at least want that. They're not even giving any more love to the DS on Virtual Console or anything, so like I said, I'd like to see them do this again sometime. But for now, when it comes to playing Game Boy games, this is the definitive way to do it, in my opinion. So, if you liked this review, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And I hope that helped Carter in your decision of whether to buy this or not. I'd personally recommend it, but I guess it's up to you. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next review. Bye.